Not a while ago. Okay,
Now, do I have to do anything while I'm here?
what, no,
Okay.
all we do is we just bring that. We need to build the other new one, because it's how to live.
I'll do it tomorrow.
You don't have to, but.
I'm pretty sure Fridays are usually pretty quiet, so also give me something to do, and it's something that needs to be done.
It's in
Danielle's office.
And so then we just carry these with us, and so we have to like 4 different clipboards in there, and so that's where we usually have some printouts some agendas to bring. These are all technical committee members. And then
So basically, these folks are the subject matter experts of whatever
yeah,
they're tired.
see, it's right now that the intern
That's the
public works
public work, yeah, but I remember
this is the text on it. We Klein first, he's an engineer, but planning director.
Okay.
Waco district. Cast off.
I remember him, president policy,
Right.
Mayor Jim.
And it's just see one way he's.
Yeah.
You know, Amy probably, remember Amy?
No,
She used to be. Okay. She was there, but you know,
Mhm.
she used to be. First director for the now she works with, she's the county assistant engineer. She works with.
Okay. I'm just looking over the slides that I'm up. Present.
And it's recording the correct screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Wait, this is. But it says, I was thinking that it was.
Mohawk Samuel. I think that is correct because I remember thinking that it was backwards last time.
So Samuel is his first name.
No, I think it's Mohawk. Mohawk Samuel, but that could be wrong. I don't know. It's some combination of those.
Yeah, it's confusing because it was. It seems like his last name should be his first name.
But I don't know when it's, I don't know what's right.
Or
But I
his
thought
first
Samuel
name.
was his last name.
Here, let's see how it is in his email.
Or see how it is on the website, on the text dot website.
It's Mohab, actually, I think we spelled his last name wrong too. It's Mohab dot, his email address. Mohab is his first name, his last name is Samoil.
Oh, yeah.
O-I-L.
Yeah.
This is bad.
Either one does.
He's never said anything.
He probably gets messed up a lot.
Been like that for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here. What is it over here? It actually may not be on here.
Maybe. Yeah, it's the first time, but he doesn't still go in this thing.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say, can you spell your last name for me? If he comes in, I'm gonna say, hey, will you write it on here to make sure we have it spelled? And we'll just have to redo the card.
Would it look less bad if I flipped it inside out and just wrote his name?
That would look way better.
Okay.
Look, I see like.
I don't know about that.
Well, let's just mind our business here.
Fix chats. Printed twice.
Oh, okay.
It's trying to say this. But you have to put it in the. Okay.
So Chad needs a new one. Yeah, I met
Did a
Delaney.
presentation. Hi, how are you?
He taught me about strength.
Do I sign in or anything?
Sure.
I'm just a public person, I don't get to sign.
No, we'd love for you to sign, it's right here if you don't mind.
Okay.
And, anyways, so I was just explaining a few things. So. It's just that way.
We'll reprint it.
Oh, I'm just gonna see what you guys are up to, and then I'll go from there.
Yeah, we do
I
chats
feel like
too.
your bus all the time, and so I have lots of questions.
Okay, so it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
It's the Waco Metropolitan Plan.
Okay.
We,
You're planning, routing, and
yeah,
what do you-
so Waco Transit does that.
Okay,
So I'm not sure.
I see another problem here, team.
But you're welcome.
I'll put it in, it looks like it's.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, so it's so stay here today.
Every time I get in a meeting, they'd be like, and then when they print it out.
Yeah, everything is fine. Definitely, appreciate
I just thought I.
stopping by and helping us out.
See any problems?
Not at the moment. Usually it's
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, once we get this far, it's normally pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Gotta wake up another story.
Yeah, it is. Stay for a couple minutes. But yeah, if y'all having trouble or if something goes down, let us know. Okay? We'll be back. Please, let's.
All right, sounds good. All right, take care.
Have a great meeting.
All right, thanks.
Like we're getting here earlier than we were meeting.
Yeah, I know the last time we came,
They were still in here doing stuff.
they were concerned. They were like, did anybody decide to show up today?
We couldn't hear most about today is. Page plan that we're finishing up. There is a chapter,
Did you almost turn it into the wrong?
but.
I actually did not to come down with a bus goal, but I turned into like a parking lot where,
It's use.
like, they got the regular parking spots. I guess if you gotta go inside to get something.
See, I told you.
I was like, north.
Park too early.
He says it's the second.
I almost turned into the bus one today.
Okay.
So.
It never fails.
See?
So I had to back out and I said, luckily this isn't a one-way, cause then I would have to loop
Oh,
around.
yeah.
So it's in Waco that we need to.
And so they're not here.
Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah, I saw another RTO. What a coincidence, right?
It's not like the people that are gonna be here, are gonna be, public works and utilities.
I almost want to.
Stuff like that happened, I just wish, like, whatever they were doing, they either get help or just end it for yourself, not, you know, people that still want to live.
There's so much on our campus.
And I
It's like,
am,
you know, I've been bicyclist,
could you just not take yourself out?
I see things here that don't make sense. You know, like
I mean, I know, yeah, I know it's probably not the right thing.
kiosks or the little waiting stations, they
So
have
many people
buses.
that are just enjoying life
Services.
or they're not
So
so
it's, so I'm just gonna tell you, be really black.
don't know what you're going through. It's two options. Get help,
Just a natural.
say goodbye to the world, and leave others alone.
Right, they trying to take everybody out.
That's like, you know, I got problems, but I still want to live.
Is there an agenda? Is this something that we take for
So
the agenda?
one of those things that you want.
The crazy thing is like, we've all just become so numb to it. So I don't typically leave, like, oh my God, but you wake up like, oh, another one. No, we just talked
Oh.
about that.
Yours isn't bold either, is it?
It's,
What happened?
it's
Bold, bold, not bold.
Oh, yeah, it's not bold. I didn't
Sounds like
realize.
me and Danielle always need to redo all of these.
it's,
Is yours?
that's what I'm saying.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, no,
Tell them what to do.
like not.
That doesn't affect the contract.
It was literally like.
Anyway, at some point,
Meeting.
Uh-huh.
I can't do it, I can't because I learned.
How long do things go?
They provide.
Yes.
The security.
Okay,
She
so what
said
it's
the
gonna tell
policy.
you, so we're gonna start talking about long range plan.
Yeah, but even
Yeah,
that.
it's just.
Well, I like to hear your perspective.
But what I'm gonna say, this is a red action, we're not gonna talk about
Okay.
it, but,
There's
but I'm
definitely
gonna
one.
take you over to Arthur.
And I think he thinks.
I don't have a story in your brain for stock.
Right. I wonder if it drives his wife to like, "Just needs to sit down."
That's it.
2 days later, he finally decides what we're having for dinner.
Which MPOs were eligible. Oh,
Whenever I was at your lab.
Wrote a comprehensive. And basically what.
Picture of this giant aloe plant on its side in front of my door. It's like,
So
so I get home, we still out there. He's like, I don't know who was by it. It's almost like them just like plugged it there.
It's tough.
Have an aloe plant, you know?
You should have planned.
And,
maybe.
Anyway, so I have a friend who's really
Trying
gardening
to
plants.
proceed
And I started like,
future and they just-
question, and she loves an aloe plant. She's like, no,
Love
she
to
tried
change
to
the way
believe
you
that.
do
It's a slightly eccentric friend that we have.
So,
I tried to believe that and I never got a straight answer. So I had to go back and check the ring camera, but she was like, please the same.
Because it helps.
I asked her if she had left
Get
it,
ideas
and
and plans this way, but also there has to be efficacy that we.
she said,
Not allowed.
wow, whoever did that was really like her, because an aloe is a symbol of health and goodwill and hope. And I was like, okay, so was that a yes? You did at least do that. It was them. I checked the ring camera, but now I have this big aloe plant that I need to repot, and I guess it's coming to work. You can't stay outside and be cold. I don't need it in the house. Yeah.
Yeah, my grandmother always had an aloe plant nearby, like in case we cut ourselves or scraped ourselves, and she'll put it on
Yeah.
pretty much anything.
But I can be your supplier here.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I sat in your space on Friday and I saw the UV light on it. I was like, do I need to turn the phone? I said, no, let me go. I have no idea where she probably got it set up on a timer or something.
It's on an 8-hour FaceTime.
Okay.
I haven't been around to watch this happen. I think they should come out around 5, I think,
Okay.
and then stay on.
I'm sorry.
With the screen.
The grow lights that I have on
Oh,
plan.
okay.
She's not by a window, so that's her solution.
Yeah.
So.
That's actually pretty smart.
Oh, great.
How to get her.
Do you invest in them? No.
I know, I just got the fertilizer, the Montana fertilizer.
Did your surgery on your little stem?
Actually, 3 active and 1 we're gonna try to get active. Work groups, because people that are interested can
I
be.
got 2 plants outside on my
Work
way.
group. We have a very active.
And they already turning brown. I was like, should I save it or should I just
They
let
have helped
it
us.
go in peace? And the cold.
We got
gets
more
bad.
outdoors.
My backyard, I have camp reduction. Once it starts to get cold,
now, but we have that in our backpack group.
chocolate mix into the ground level, I'm with mulching and things like that.
For a warning.
So, I don't know,
It's not
that's
that
really cool
That's
for
how
couple days,
Mhm.
and so chopping down like that, we have mulch. And then they started coming back because it got warm and they thought it was spring. Even my nectarine has flowers on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I looked at those, like, it was cold enough for y'all to die. Like,
Yeah.
you know, feeling- But I think that's, it might come back. Then. I'm I love them, but I can't keep them alive.
It's hard, but I don't have a great track record. Potted.
Okay, like my older sister, her house is still.
I had a bunch of stuff in my house, like some friend, my friend were, while, so, and then, but I went in the winter, I was like, I want you to come back out of the second one, if you're interested. So I walked out and they were all just like,
Figure out.
Yeah.
The best ways, okay?
Now you can to me.
Right? Felt like it'd be trail.
Should have to do some week too.
I'm attached now.
So he was hoping.
I need to
transit.
No,
I gave him a finger info, so I'm hoping that maybe he'll just become a friend of the MPO. I was trying to tell him how,
Like one of the
Well, we-
babies had.
you know, how we kind of fit in. because
Yes,
there's
so I
so
had
many
like a
different
little.
things. So I was trying to give him.
You know, up in there and got on my ladder, back in there. Cause I guess he was learning how to fly, but
One thing that
not
I
quite
would
there
say
yet.
that We've seen in public meeting that people who have strong
It wasn't
opinions.
there. Probably like it.
Right.
I'm gonna have to get a.
So this is weird.
Looks
That,
terrifying.
you know, presented to the policy board that this is the
The
common that
house
we
in
see.
Florida, Tennessee had like
I
a
hate to
long
admit it,
porch one in
but-
front of the house. I had ferns hanging and
But on the other
I had
hand, we
left
have
mine out
like
too long,
like
like it was really bad looking.
Not that.
So I went to pull it down
Yes,
and I felt wings flutter
That's what I was telling
in
him.
the hand.
Exactly, so
Frantically.
it takes time, systematically, you know, but it really makes things.
Decent size barrel, like in the pot, but then that's in there when I felt it.
There's a lot of speakers, a lot of
Yeah.
kids singing.
Hello.
You made the news this morning, that's why I'm here, just to let you know.
I said it must have been a slow news day, that one of the TV stations picked up that meeting,
Channel,
so.
I'll call it channel 25.
I see, okay.
So maybe people will show up, I don't know, but stay here and listen to this. And then, if there's anybody that actually comes in from transit, we will make that
Yeah, I
connection.
might stay high to the people, I have I have to, like, I mentioned, I need to buy my bus tickets too. So we're very active in using the bus, and I'm also a member of the bike club and things like that, so. But just thought I'd see what's going on.
Yeah.
Fantastic,
glad that you're
yeah, yeah, thank
So
you.
I was trying to
No
give kind
problem.
of a big picture, how we fit in, I told him, please stay for the meeting,
Yes,
and then we'll have your name, and then we'll have.
Please invite me back.
Yeah, we're gonna have a bike ped meeting on, it's gonna be announced, we'll have a bike ped meeting, I think it's February 19th, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Third Wednesday of February.
And we haven't decided where, but what we'll do is we'll try to get your name. Did
let me make sure I can read the email correctly. So it's MOO dot
M-O, I'm, yeah, it's M-D-O-I.
got it.
G.
Got it.
And so we'll get this and we'll get you on that bike ped. Distribution list. And then you'll know about it. And you'll hear a tiny bit about it today. The other two things that are transit related that are gonna come out today.
Targets.
There. This is. Employee. Performance management. That's new authorization rules are good.
You know what?
So there's, what are these employees?
So I noticed that in the
You're gonna hear about safety
presentation,
and
right after the slide for the
asset condition. So today is what you're gonna hear about, so
roadway
safety.
safety targets.
And
You had
so
a
that's
note
one that
Put up the
you wanted to
25 targets.
has-
And right now it only says 24 targets, and it just says at the bottom that.
We're gonna have to
for
redo it.
TMP.
We're gonna have to adopt what they asked us to adopt last year.
But I am thinking that for the public
point of us-
presentation we do.
Is adopting targets is that there's somebody else's targets that they have to
Pulling up
follow.
the public
but
presentation we did last.
Reason why Congress wanted
It has a
us.
lot more detail
Also adopt
information on
this.
that. So I would say,
That are in the
so
room,
for the public
they want that
presentation,
information to make sure.
what
it's
you were
easy to know.
saying that, you know,
A
have
number of
2025 target, let's make sure that you
So,
have the 2025 target on
so-
slide, even though it's a repeat
It'll
of
be the-
2024.
Public transportation.
And plus, let's add a bunch of stuff from the last
Safety, and it has targets.
public meeting, because there's lots of really meaningful
That's the way
discussion
controls
about
its plan.
safety, land use, what
City Waco.
performance measures by themselves don't make that much sense, that it's a process.
We're gonna ask the
Let's put that out,
to do
like
it.
today is very simple, so we'll keep it
And
simple.
then the policy board
But what we do at the public meeting, then
on
we'll
later this month, maybe on the third. Third
February
Thursday.
meeting slides where we
So
actually.
you'll see that we're gonna ask
That sounds good.
This. So it'll be safety. So there's.
What's that teaching back then?
Oh, here. We all travel with those.
Okay.
So that's what this is about. Make sure that if we are. That's just treating our tenants and their individual notifications.
Okay.
No, we can't make it. We can make sure. That's what you're gonna hear today. So I want to make a little bit of background so that you just- I don't know how much discussion there will be. I'll do it's too much. But we are here to explain it, you know, after the meeting, if you have questions, any. Talk to you. All right, I'll let you be.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Put the joints on the. Yes, can we hear them?
They should be able to, usually when they join, they don't really say much, but we should be able to hear them. Yeah.
That's cool. Are you gonna go?
I don't know, I can go next week.
There's a transmission shop over 100.
We get back in the.
Thanks, sir. That was calculation of that rise.
It's on vacation. Laura.
Yeah.
It's a weird day for a meeting.
Right after, most people probably took it off, or the rest of the week and just start fresh Monday.
No, Brenton's email response said it was out till tomorrow.
Okay.
It was on the.
Or through to it, or until.
It said through today, through the third, I mean, through the second. I thought it was through. He'll return on the third.
Oh, interesting.
I do.
Jim joined. So at least we got one person.
I sent him the link to. Here comes Mike. Here comes a reporter. Here comes Clayton. Maybe she's not a reporter, but the way she was walking with her, no one looked like a reporter.
She came to the public meeting,
Yeah, I think so.
she was in participation worker.
Good afternoon, Jim. We want to see if we can hear you from our end. Do you mind unmuting your mic and just saying a few words?
Everything.
Yeah. That's only how it happens.
Okay, what'd you have?
The doll.
Very good.
You?
Same thing.
Man, they have lunch specials. So I got
The other way.
beef, samosas. I got chicken tahari or something like that. And then I also got chicken
Biryani.
biryani.
Well, it's not-
I cannot pronounce these words,
Right.
but as you can see.
So I guess, like I had this, and it's like.
Two different plates, what they bring out. Yes, a lot.
Find out. Okay. Because I think Sam is up to 6. Laura is up to 6. We don't have our chair and vice chair. It's like, oh, how are you doing? Good, how are you? Okay. Sam is out to 6. I do ask him about it.
He's on. He has a logo. I think he's.
The first time I saw him here, I know that.
So you like,
Yeah.
that box that was interesting.
In the box that we sent, yes. Yes, enough for.
How are you doing? No, okay. Victor, can you present it? I'll try, how about that? It's Zayden now. All right.
It's kind of seen, or is he still on there?
Oh, Zoom call.
Already?
You back.
Well. We'll start with the light.
You might get to.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
That's the one.
We've got it. Yeah. It's nice. I know he's on vacation.
And then,
Good always.
you know, we got. Yeah, we got four on the. Oh, and it's just those. And then, yeah. Resume. Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of like.
Fire alarm. He doesn't have anybody else to talk to, just fire alarm, you know.
This came home, so. Yeah. 23 and 20. So it's weird. It's also. Our contractors. When we get there, I think also they have this real big job. Yeah. Like, you know. Good afternoon, everybody. With Zane and Amy both being gone, I get to facilitate this Waco MPO tech meeting today. It's 1:30, so we're gonna go ahead and start. So as usual, we've been off for a month or so. Let's go around the room with introductions. So Andy, if you want to kind of kick it off.
Thank you, City of Lacey Lakeland.
Jennifer Bowen with SCD Infrastructure.
Rachel Williams, City of Waco.
Mike Wallen, City of Waco.
Kyle Wilson, I work at the Advocacy Center.
Clinton Zaka, Tech South Waco area engineer.
Samuel, fixed up the Waco area office.
Mukesh Kumar, Waco MPO. Victor Gable, I'm the director of TPD for the Waco District.
Craig Rice, City Bomi.
I'm Mike Dorich, I'm just a visitor, I'm a resident of Waco, live out in Twin Rivers area, Twin Rivers Legal Bill.
Bear City, Beverly Hills.
Andy Happer, APD engineer, Tech South.
Devin LeGree, the new admin assistant for the MPO office. Or Roy Waco MPO.
And at Polk, Waco MPO.
Other chambers, Waco MPO, then we have 3 online, and we have Jim Reed, Abram Van Elswick, I feel like I pronounced it correctly, and Roger Blakely.
So first item of business is for review, discussion, and possible action regarding resolution 2025-1, adoption of Waco MPO 2015 Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
Before we get into this, I just wanted to remind everybody that we do have that, go back to slide number 3. We do have the QR code for all the meeting material. You can access them directly by using this, and you can access this presentation online, and so you can pull up all the meeting material together. First, I wanted to thank Victor for chairing this meeting, because we typically have Zane and Laura as the vice chair, and then they're both on vacation, and Brenton has filled in several times, but he's on vacation too. And so, so thank you for doing that. So we're not going to get into a lot of details today, because, you know, thanks to all the work that Technical Advisory Committee has done on the MTP over the last 2 years, you have been deeply involved with the entire process. And so what we wanted to do is, let's go to this slide number 6. Yes, so we started the process in January of 2023. We had a small group of people who spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out what the approach and scope for 2050 MTP needs to look like. We spent quite a bit of time in October coming up with a public listening session, then synthesizing what we heard from everybody from housing to economic development to labor to public health. And we synthesized all of it, and it resulted in a call proposal product evaluation framework that we developed between December and February. And then we, based on that, we solicited the projects, which occurred from March to July, and then public meetings that occurred from August through October. And we recently completed the last meeting, which was the formal official meeting. And we are expecting that final MTP for 2050 is going to be adopted by the policy board on at its January meeting. Next slide. And so the 30 days public comment period ended on December 25th, started on November 25th. We had those 2 public information meetings on the 16th. And what we said, this is what the cover of Convey 2050 is going to look like. Last time in 2045, we called it Connections 2045. This time we decided to call it Convey 2050. And even though it might seem like a muddy word to use, how many people actually use the word convey these days, but we intentionally decided to use this because one of the important defining features that we want our transport system to be like is that it not only conveys people's and goods from one location to the other, but it simultaneously conveys value, meaning quality of life, how we experience life itself. And so convey in that sense, captured what we were trying to do with this quite significantly. Wanted to bring up a couple of feedback from the that came up during the public meetings that we did. Largely, there was significant support for increased transit options, improved bus frequency, reliability of timing. Those were the issues that came up quite a bit for transit-related issues. Fewer drive safety improvements, all the discussions we had, there was almost unanimous. Everyone who uses Hewitt Drive is very aware of challenges. And so prioritizing Hewitt Drive is important. Eliminating barriers for biking and walking to schools and parks. It's clear that at least in a short run, these are some of the lowest hanging fruits for bikes and pedestrian facilities. That access to schools and parks using bikes and pedestrian facilities are probably will return the best return on the investment in the short term. Shaded trails connecting the parks, because what came up very again, even though we live in Texas, we tend to forget how hot Texas gets. And so no amount of trails in the facility are going to be useful unless it is shaded for most of the year. Similarly, safe access to healthcare and shopping centers without cars, because we do have a substantial population that does operate without single occupancy vehicles, and they do face significant challenges in accessing healthcare and shopping facilities. There was a fairly good interest in electric vehicle infrastructure and how do we integrate future technology into our transportation system. And quite importantly, I don't think there was one person who came and said that we don't understand safety because everything is perfectly safe. In fact, everybody uniformly agreed that we need to do better at our intersections. Next slide. Here are some comments. One of the things we thought we would highlight is that in 2023, 23% of all the trips were less than or equal to a mile. And the importance of that data point really is that it tells us that how our land use forces us to use single occupancy vehicle, even though almost a quarter of all trips are shorter than a mile. A mile is a significant pointer because in most cases for a mile, people would take the pedestrian or bike facility if the trip is shorter than a mile quite more easily, compared to as you go more than a mile, it's a lot harder to convert them into bike and pedestrian facilities. And that's the comment that we have decided to type out verbatim, that yeah, it is so dangerous to walk everywhere, especially beyond downtown. There are a few crosswalks within reasonable walking distance along Valley Mills or Waco Drive, Waco Drive. There's no shade and people speed everywhere. Isn't there some kind of environmental sociology we can use to build roads that force drivers to be more cautious? And we have been trying to consider and adopt as many improvements in the design standards for vehicles of the infrastructure. But the roadway design will only get us so far. And similarly, driver's education will also only get us so far. Ultimately, it does come down to land use and how. Last time we heard, I don't think two pedestrians collided with each other and resulted in a fatality. Next slide. This is another one related to congestion. You know, in most cases, we think of capacity, but capacity is often a concern after the fact, meaning that land use changes already set the parameter about what needs to be done before any capacity discussion happens. And by the time congestion occurs or capacity discussions begin, but we know that the land use problems are already there. And then trying to find transportation solution to a land use problem, as we keep saying, is almost like trying to solve a precise problem or a detailed problem with a hammer. Anyway, that's what we end up doing. And transportation solutions are not going to result in these solutions. So again, what keeps coming up is Valley Mills, Waco Drive, bosque areas who are being polluted. I already can't drive with my windows down. Roads in general are a blight on modern society. So you can read it, but the point is that there is a good bit of what we were pleasantly surprised about was that how we typically don't think of transportation system as something that people consciously think about all the time. But given the discussions and you can see the quality of comments, it's obvious that there are more people who pay very close attention to how our transportation system functions. And so this was very, very encouraging. Next slide. So first, we are grateful for all the support that we have received from everybody at the TAC. But let's go to the next slide. And these are some of the names that we came up with, some of the institutions that have helped significantly throughout the process. We, instead of taking a typical 1 year, we took 2 years to complete this one because we wanted this MTP to be more reflective of what the policy board wants, what we think we're capturing for the region. And so instead of making it entirely as staff-driven process, we wanted to make sure that it accommodated as many people as possible and recognize before even at the starting point that there's a wide diversity of thoughts about what needs to be done. And our system, our process of developing projects, they need to be reflective of that. And so we're quite happy with what we have been able to do so far. These are some of the names who have helped significantly. I think we intentionally decided not to name any of you here because we take your help for granted. And so thank you for that. Next slide, please. And so we'd like to open up for any discussion, and we would like to. We're hoping that you will recommend it to the policy board to approve the resolution to adopt the 2050 MTP.
So any open discussion regarding this item? I think pretty well. You did a good job. So if no discussion, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make
a motion to adopt. Second. Okay, so all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Next item is review, discussion, and possible action regarding the solicitation of public comment on Waco Transit Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, Transit Agency Management Plan, and Waco MPO roadway safety measures.
So we typically we do an ongoing analysis of what our performance measures look like. The FAST Act set PM1 and PM2 targets related to both safety of public transport system as well as roadway safety, and also transit asset management, the TAM targets. And along with that, at a future date, we will also bring up the state of good repair target for the transit system in the area and the reliability. We do not have the numbers for reliability metrics yet, but we have the safety targets. This is what we're presenting today. What we typically expect to do is that, as you can see through this federal transit planning process, that is the sort of suggested process that we follow, that strategic planning, long-range plan, short-range improvement program, and then it all results in the performance management. It is supposed to loop back into the feedback. So based on what the performance targets are, it needs to inform what the overall policy planning process itself looks like. So next slide. And so the federal goals are to better assess and maintain the safety risk within transit services. The public transportation safety, you can read the text here. The most important takeaway from our perspective really is that Waco Transit is much safer than the average expectations. And today you will see some of the targets, the baseline that it turns out to do. It does a much better job than an average standard. What we are doing today is also establishing what the measures are going to look like, what the targets are going to look like. These are reassessed and we set them each year in the month of January and February. Next slide. So these are the numbers for the 2025 safety targets. These were adopted by the Waco City Council on December 17th. And you can see that the fatality is, again, our target is 0. And therefore rate is also supposed to be 0. There are injuries of 3 we expect to decline by small to 3.6. The rate of injuries are almost negligible to 0. Safety events from 3 to 2.2. And one of the things we want to point out is that these are all the numbers that are total numbers for the year for the total revenue miles traveled. And so the total revenue miles basically means when a bus is in operation, it has people on board and it is completing its route. System reliability, there's reliable system events that are 22,592 total. We expect it to go up slightly because of the age of the fleet. For the demand response system, again, the fatality are 0. Injuries are almost close to 0 as well, and the rates are close to 0 as well. So again, the point of this table really is that both fatality and injury rates on the Waco Transit has been close to 0, and we expect to maintain those numbers. Next slide. For the transportation asset management, what it does is that instead of thinking about transportation assets, which largely means the facilities, buses, and all the equipment we use, thinking about them on an ad hoc basis, we do an annual analysis of what the useful life benchmark is and how many vehicles are beyond that, how many vehicles are before that, and we set targets. As a small transit agency, Waco Transit participates in the statewide TAM targets, and those are typically your 4-year targets that are set by for all the small transit agencies across the state. And so these targets were set for 2023 and 2026, and in both cases, 15% is the benchmark we use. That the rolling stock, that's basically buses and the vehicles that have wheels on them, is less than 15% of fleet assets are operating beyond their useful life benchmark. And similarly, equipment that is less than or 15% of assets operating beyond the useful life benchmark. And the third one is the 15% of facilities, that's we were sitting in the facility. And the term scale is transit economic requirement measure. And what it does is that it takes it as a quantitative measure to evaluate all transit facilities on a scale and gives it a value of 1 through 5. And 3 is the benchmark they use. And so everything is expected to be above 3, and no more than 15% could be lower than 3. So that's what the facility targets are. And the 2023 to 2026 is a 4-year rolling stock. And the performance targets for Waco Transit is discussed, excuse me, on page 6 of the statewide TAM targets. Next. For the roadway safety, what we typically do is we look at the 5 different values: the total number of fatalities per 100 million volume. And so that's the rate of fatality, number of serious injuries, and similarly rate of serious injuries, and the number of non-motorized fatality and non-motorized serious injuries. Serious injury has often raised question what constitutes serious injury, and each state DOT gets to define what serious injury definition. And so TxDOT's definition is fairly standard, which is used very common to almost half of the DOT definitions, okay? And it typically involves, I do not recall exactly, it's a much longer definition than what I can recall, but typically the easiest way shorthand is that losing a limb, or typically, so serious injuries are really serious. They don't just mean that, you had an accident. You can't recover from it completely. They're lifelong injury that you sustain. And so serious injuries do need to be taken very seriously. And the total number of non-motorized fatalities. And so those are bike and pedestrian vulnerable road user numbers. And so we again reassess and set these targets each year. For 2024, you will notice that all the numbers here, they tell you about the 2024 targets. And the simple reason for that is that we received instructions from the TPMP at TxDOT that for 2025, the targets are going to be the same as 2024. And you can see the numbers for the statewide targets are 3,046 was for last year. We're going to stay the same. 1.14 is the rate of fatality, 18,000 is the serious injury, 6.77 is the rate, and 2,360 are the numbers for non-motorized fatality and serious injuries. And so for this year, 2025 targets, this is going to remain the same. And the only addition we have clarification from the TPMP that they are in negotiation with the Federal Highway Administration to improve or change these numbers. But even when they do, these targets will stay the same for the current year. Now, one of the things that we want to make, let's go to the next slide very quickly. And when translated to McLennan County, this is what it looks like. So 2024, 29 fatalities, 0.95 in the rate per 100 million mile travel, 252 serious injuries, translates to 8.3 per million miles traveled. And then there are 26 bike and pedestrian fatalities or serious injuries. The point we want to make is that these targets are important to keep in mind, and they give us some anchor points to think about why are we engaged in so much of safety discussion throughout our projects. But at the Waco MPO, we not only look at these targets, we actually want these targets to get down to 0 as quickly as possible. We have signed on to the Vision Zero commitment for the Waco MPO by 2050. And what we expect to do is try and get these down to as close to 0 as possible. And you have seen that, we have 3 different SS4A grants that we have been working with. And we also have from City of Robinson and City of Meade have received additional SS4A grant. And so we have very reasonable expectation that by implementing some of these grants, we can see significant reduction in fatality and serious injury in McLennan County. One of the alarming items about 3 years ago, when we did an analysis was that state of Texas already is higher than national average in fatalities and serious injuries, and McLennan County was higher than even the state average. And so we are expecting to not only make the dent, but at least get it down to much lower than the statewide average as soon as possible. Next slide. So what we, today, you're not making a decision on the performance targets. Today, you will be recommending that we do start the solicitation of comments period from January 27th to 5th, and we expect to hold a public information meeting on January 27th. And this will be in person at 401 Franklin Avenue, and there will be virtual option. And you will review the targets based on the policy, based on the public discussion at the next meeting on February 6th. And the public hearing and the policy board will take action on it.
Thanks, Mukesh. So is there any open discussion regarding all the Mukesh just went through? Can I get a motion? Yes, sir. So all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item. Review, discussion, and possible action regarding scheduling a call for proposals for the 25 through 28 TIP amendment and modification process.
So the part that necessitated this idea was that typically what happens, we have several MTP, the TIP, the CSAP, the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, or Active Transmission Plan, Carbon Reduction Program. And all of these plans and programs from time to time, they require changes. Until now, what we have been doing is that whenever there is something that needs to occur, we start making, we start responding to it. What it has resulted sometimes in is that we do not have a preset timeline for when what needs to happen. And what it ends up being then is that sometimes, here, last year and the year before, there were some lapsing funds for transit. Then we had to immediately start acting on those. And what we want to do is streamline the entire process so that we all know when to expect what. And that way we can start estimating, sort of like the way we do asset management planning. That we need to start thinking about, what are all the changes we need to be making in the current year. We can start the process in January. In fact, at the last meeting, we talked about that it might make more sense to do it in November, and we can consider that beginning from next one. But for this year, what we're doing is we're proposing that we initiate a call for annual call for amendment proposals. And what this would mean is that this will amend not only the TIP, but also the MTP, CSAP, CRP, or any of the programs that need any form of amendment. This will be affecting more, so this will be used mostly by TxDOT and Transit, but even the cities which want to make changes to the CRP projects or any project that is already in CSAP, they need to be able to tell us, what needs to be amended, and we can have them go through the same process. What we're expecting to do is that following the January policy board meeting, we can set the date at that meeting when the solicitation will be. And the proposal review and public engagement process will initiate following the February policy board meeting. At the March policy board meeting, we review the comment, and then we amend the proposal evaluation and figure it out exactly when what needs to be added to which particular quarterly revision. And that's what the process is going to look like. One of the important changes we also want to make is, and in a moment I'll also explain why this is important. So right now, most of the changes in our programs are set to go through largely an administrative amendment. What this means is that an amendment process is a three-step process. Three-step process basically looks like this. We bring the idea that this is what is proposed. After that, we get a go-ahead that, okay, start working on this. And then we get the next meeting in which, and so that's the next second step, in which we ask the policy board, here are the changes we would like to make. Would you give us the go-ahead to do a public comment period? Then we do a public comment, and the third step of the process is when we bring it back to policy board for approval. And following that, we can go and make the necessary revisions. So you're typically looking at about a 6-month process for any change that we're making. And what we want to do is make sure that not everything needs to be an amendment. And just to give you two important examples, at the last meeting, we discussed the twin bridges. For the twin bridges, the way the programming works is that instead of having, if I recall correctly, treating them as a single project, TxDOT wanted to put it in two separate project ID CHA numbers. And what that meant was the funding needed to be adjusted. There was no change in overall funding. But right now, the way it is set up, it still needs to go through an amendment process. That's the kind of stuff which we think that it will make sense to do, what we call the administrative modification. An administrative modification basically allows the MPO director to make some of the changes and then notify the policy board before or after, depending on how urgent the change is. Right now, there is no such thing as notification for our purposes. It still needs to go through the same three-step process. And so part of this is really also making the change that so that the policy board approves this in some of the cases. Another example would be Loop 340. So under Loop 340, the entire project is broken actually through just the CHA. Depending on which side of the river it is. The overall project cost does not change, project limitation design, none of this changes. That's not necessarily, we don't think that that's something that needs to go through an amendment process. That is something that can be handled largely through an administrative modification. So that is what we intend to propose to the policy board. What I also wanted us to go over is, Arthur, if you can walk us through the next set of slides.
Yeah, so we'll be using decision lens again. A lot of you are familiar with decision lens when we did the call for proposals for the projects for the MTP. So currently we're in the process of changing up our Waco MPO website so that we can have a landing page for 3 different links, which will be MTP tip roadway amendment, MTP transit amendment, and then other plans or program amendments, anything that's not MTP or tip related. So the steps are complete the intake form. There's a mix of drop-down choices and open-ended questions. Submit proposal. After completing the proposal, select submit as idea. As you can see right here, once all the required fields are completed, then this will not be grayed out. It will be applicable for you to submit as an idea. And yeah, next slide. So this is an example of one of the, I think this is a tip amendment that we did as staff so that you guys can see an example of what some of these fields will look like. I guess it's maybe not the best example because it's different situation for this hydrogen fueling station. But as you can see at the top, there is a place where you put the amendment name, and once you create the amendment name, then you will be able to start the draft. A lot of this stuff won't show up until you submit the or type in the name for it. Don't worry about the status because that just changes as you submit the idea. For the cost table, the next slide will, or a few slides down will show a little bit more information about the cost table because it is a little, I think that's the most challenging field to fill in. And yeah, so this is the next one is the fiscal year. Yeah, I'll go to the next slide. Yeah, it's pretty much self-explanatory. This is a activity log where you can see all the changes that have been made throughout the process of getting this draft submitted. Adding contributors, all you got to do is just add their email. If they are not registered to Decision Lens, it should send them a registration email, and they could just simply register by creating a username and password. It's very simple. Adding comments, you can add someone that's contributing. That way, they get a notification in their email to maybe complete one of these fields and help you guys get it submitted. And then back to the cost table. So when you're on the screen right here, you'll be able to click. I think that says assign costs, and then the columns will show up, and you just highlight whatever funding you see fit for this proposal. This example was category 10 funding, so that's why I say this. Most will use category 2 funding, but for this example, hydrogen fueling station is a different situation. And then these are just more examples of other fields. There's a good amount of fields. I didn't want to like overdo the slide with just a bunch of fields to fill in, but this is just examples of this is 2 different screenshots of which y'all will see on Decision Lens. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. If y'all have any questions about decision lands, feel free to send me an email or meet with me afterwards. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty useful tool, so we haven't had any problems with it so far.
So decision lens is what we used for the MTP corporate proposal as well, and it has been very successful. And so now we have plenty of experience with it too. And so if you have any question, just drop us a note, and we can walk you through not only what needs to be done, but even literally what screens you will be seeing. So what we are, so we don't have an exact date yet, because we want to make sure that we know that there are significant number of amendments that will be proposed from transit. We also know that there will be several amendments proposed from TxDOT Waco District. And so for the exact date of when the core proposal needs to be, we'll have some discussions and have an exact date proposed for the policy board. It will be following, we had some discussion which it may not make sense to open it up immediately following the policy board. We'll wait another couple of weeks before we open it. And so we'll figure out exactly when it needs to be open for. So today, what we're requesting you to do is to make a recommendation to the policy board to schedule a call for proposal for 2025-28 amendment and notification.
So is there any discussion before we ask for a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second. So all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next time. So I guess you're gonna give us some updates, Rakesh, on the current.
Yes, so we have one super exciting update actually in this month. So as you're aware that, so I'll save the most exciting part that's the very last bullet point. And so for the FY 2023 demonstration project grant we have a total of 1.5 million. And we did an RFQ for that, and we had 5 submissions, 5 applicants. We're reviewing the applications now, and we are expecting to bring it to. So when we select a consultant, we haven't decided whether we are also going to be doing interview or not. That will be based on the review we complete. Review will be completed tomorrow on Monday. By Monday, and after that we'll make a decision whether we need to do an oral interviews. If oral interviews are needed, then we can't bring it to the policy board at the January meeting. Then it will have to go to the February meeting. It also needs to be then ratified or supported by the Waco City Council, and so we have to do that. The FY 2024 implementation grant, this is for the sign inventory. We are in the process of drafting the grant agreement. We have not signed the grant agreement yet. For the FY 2023, we got the RAISE grant for about 4.95 million to do the smart corridor planning. And this is the one where grant has been executed, and we will be doing an RFQ. We had made a request to Federal Higher Administration to allow us to do a sole source procurement from Center for Transmission Research at UT Austin, and they have said no. What that means is we will be doing an RFQ for the RAISE grant very soon. And we recently learned that we have been awarded about $1.44 million for prioritizing a multimodal access. This is a SMART grant, and in the SMART grant, what we had proposed was, typically, when it comes to red light coordination, we can prioritize based on some traffic signal prioritization system. We can do them beforehand. We can tinker with what the yellow or the green light durations are going to be. But in many cases, what we need to do is, given the level of technology we have, is to try and figure out, can we manage our traffic flow, not only for the cars, but also for bike, pedestrian, and transit in real time. And what this means is we have significant amount of sensors that are available that can be installed prior to approaching the red light. And using that information and using artificial intelligence, we can in fact manage our traffic flow through any intersection in real time with roughly about 2-minute interval of data that are coming to us at all the time. So in this case, this is a demonstration project in which there is technology that is already being used in Amsterdam and Copenhagen. That's where they have been using it for quite some time. Columbus, Ohio just installed a few intersections with similar technology. And so we have been awarded this grant and we will start the process. Most of it is going to be in and around the I-35 is really important because we focused on the idea of making sure that the traffic between Baylor campus and the downtown, it goes as smoothly as possible. And simultaneously, these are also the locations where the morning commute and the afternoon, after work are typically the worst. And so the question always keeps coming up, how do you prioritize? Does it make sense to prioritize a single pedestrian while holding the traffic for cars for much longer? Or does it make sense to do it differently at time to time? Do they need to work differently at different times of the day? And so in this particular case, what this will do is that this will allow us to test out exactly what is an optimal traffic movement through every intersection. And some of the additional items we mentioned in this particular case was we have been thinking about bike pedestrian not only from the bike pedestrian point of view, but also think about it more also in terms of business impact. So typically, if there are bike pedestrian prioritization, are we expecting higher volume of bike pedestrian access to businesses in the downtown? We need to collect data on that as well. And so that's also included as part of this project. So we are super excited about getting this project, and we will be scheduling some meetings in the next couple of weeks to discuss the path forward on this.
All right, so next up, Clayton is going to give us some updates on TechStop projects.
Moab's gonna take over the first couple of years.
I will give an update for the current projects and Clayton gonna cover the upcoming project in I-35. So starting with the Spring Valley project, all the final pavement has been laid and the striping is finished, so it's open in the final configuration for the traffic, remaining some miscellaneous work and punch list. Next slide, please. Similar to 2113 FM 434, laying hot mix has been completed and striping. Now traffic running on the final configuration for the project, remaining some miscellaneous work. Sidewalk and the signal work at the intersection was between 434 and La Salle intersection. So, in State Highway 31, we shifted the traffic to the detour on the westbound of State Highway 31, and currently they continue working on backfilling and milling the westbound, preparing for the bridge on FM 2311. They continue working on extending the existing culverts. This is the main work going on. Still the full closure for 2311 scheduled 8 months from now. I think that's all of the project.
Quite less than that.
Yeah.
Be the spring and then the duration of that closure.
Yes.
4C, big thing to note is that lit in October, James Construction is our contractor. We are anticipating work starting towards the end of next month at this point. Looking at a 4-year project. We've got some scheduling meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks with the contractor, so have some formal details at that point and start sharing those hopefully in the February meeting and beyond. We'll go to the next slide. Arthur did want to provide some information on the project. We've got a website set up. The link is there in the slide. Within that, you can sign up for email updates on closures, other high impact work. We'll have a project hotline similar to the previous job. Social media handle there for Twitter updates, but feel free to visit that information for the latest and greatest.
All right, next up, do we have any work group updates?
We don't have a new work group update, but we are delighted that we are actually starting the citizen participation work group. And that's the one, so thank you for offering to host the first one. So on March 19th, we have a citizen participation work group. The important part of the, you have heard updates from bike pedestrian connected automated vehicle work group. The importance of citizen participation, which actually is, we thought it was so important that the citizen participation work group actually had a voting membership on the TAC. And so they're the only work group that actually gets to vote with TAC on all the projects and all the decisions we make. And the idea behind it was that we wanted to make sure that citizen participation isn't just what the basic federal code requires, and that it actually is meaningful, and we are in fact paying attention to how citizens consider some of the decisions that we make. And so we wanted to make sure that is highlighted, wanted to make sure that they actually have a voting representation at the TAC. And this importance is, I want to underscore it by one more item, that we recently, so we're in the process of redesignating the MPO, and one of the items that comes up then is that policy board is largely an elected body, and let's be honest, I mean, they are not engineers, they are not planners, they're not necessarily paying attention to all the decision making. And so that was the intention behind the TAC having a formal bylaws and such that we did about 2 years ago. And we're moving in the same direction in which a lot of important decisions are deliberated, discussed, and decided here, and then made recommendation to the policy board so that the elected officials who are largely represent the policy board, they can make decisions much more easily rather than having these in-depth discussions there. So we're very excited about starting the citizen participation group, and we expect to see some wonderful things. The meeting is scheduled for March 19th. The Connected Automated Vehicle Work Group meeting is coming up on January 15th, and Bike Pedestrian Work Group meeting will be on February 19th. Next slide. Same thing. 7.
So next item, MPO monthly report.
So we have our annual performance and expenditure report that is due. We are updating it for the current year. We're just waiting for tie up a couple of loose ends and send it to TechStart. The important call for proposal for transportation alternative, it opens in January 2025. If you haven't started the process, and I'm looking at all the public works directors in the room, please do use this and send in your applications. We had a last group discussion, which was pretty useful. And so this time we are going to be discussing Happy City, but we haven't decided exact date. We'll make the decision. Bike Ped Work Group will make that decision February 19th when, and I'll post it. And so please join us for that. And we are also very excited to have Devin join our staff. And so Devin, if you can say a few words and introduce yourself with a little more information to the group so that they know when they see an email from you, who you are.
So as he stated, my name is Devin Legree. I've been with the team since coming up on roughly 2 months now. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina. I ended up in Texas because I retired here in 2021 after 22 years of service with the U.S. Army. I currently reside in Temple, Texas. I have 2 adult daughters. One's a senior at Texas State and one's a senior in high school. She'll graduate this May, and she's hoping to be a Longhorn. So we're waiting that decision on the end of the month. So we'll see how that goes. I have a beagle, and I'm very excited to be a part of this team. I never knew how much stuff goes on just to get a road or striping. So now that I'm driving in, I'm like, who's maintaining this bridge? Is it TechStart? Is it Waco? So my brain is starting to turn because I'm starting to pick up on some of the lingo, but it's just amazing how, you go through life and you really don't pay attention to signs or how something got there. And now all of a sudden it's like every corner I turn, it's like, man, who's going to replace that fallen sign? So like I say, I'm very happy to be a part of this team. It's just been a very good 2 months or a month and a half.
Item is the announcements. Looks like our next meeting is going to be Thursday, February 6th.
January 15th for Connected Automated Vehicle, February 19th Bike Pedestrian Work Group, March 19th Citizen Participation Work Group, and any agenda item that you might have. Please.
I want to talk about the UTP real quick.
Yes,
Absolutely. So we just finished up the FY25 UTP. It feels like yesterday, but it's actually been 4 months when it was approved back in August. And we actually started the FY26 one, and we should be getting our allocations for category 2 for this group, so. By the end of the month, and I don't know if that means we're gonna be briefing TAC and policy board in February or March, I don't know.
I think that was the consideration for what should we do the open call for proposal, because once, if you don't have that information, it's hard to anticipate what the amendments needed.
And so for y'all that don't know, the UTP is our Unified Transportation Plan. It's TxDOT's statewide 10-year plan of all the funding. It has all the categories, 1 through 12, and it's broken out by district and MPO and what the allocations are for each year for 10 years. The last 3 or 4 years, the UTP's been about 110 billion statewide. And we have actually been spending about 13 billion statewide per year for the last 2 or 3 years. So if you do the math, your average spend out should really be about 9 million. We were sitting on some cash that they wanted to get rid of, so they spent down some cash. And so now what we're going to start doing is working our way back to our average. And so what that means is that they're probably not going to front load the UTP like they have been. So it's going to be more spread out. And that's probably going to mean that we don't deliver projects as quick as we have been, which has been a rush the last 3 or 4 years, y'all know this. But I don't see it going any way back like it was 8 or 10 years ago when there was zero funding. So a couple things to keep in mind, and this is my speculation based on my experience and what I've been hearing. They don't know what the cash forecast in the Prop 1 and Prop 7 are going to look like just yet. So that could also be lower allocations statewide. In addition, with some of these projects and the inflation that we're seeing, the estimates are going way up. That might mean that some of the projects we have funding on, they're not fully funded anymore, because we don't have enough money to put out there. So again, this is just kind of, I'm trying to prepare everybody and manage expectations here, because it's going to be a little bit more relaxing pace, but it's not going to be as exciting with all the money coming at us that we need to get these projects out there. So any questions on that?
I've heard in the news too that there is going to be some cutbacks. I don't know how that's going to affect us in the state.
So something else that goes along with that, since we're going to work back to our average and ramp our project delivery down some, that also means we're going to slow down our project development. And so our professional services budget, as well as our right-of-way budget, we didn't get everything we asked for. And so we are actually going through the process right now, and that we probably have to pause some of the projects that are long range that they've not really funded yet. And so that might impact some of these MPO projects. We don't know which ones yet. That's something we're working on. Should know at the end of the month, this month. That impacts us or not. So. Anything else?
Missed a few of the organization updates.
Yeah, so this repeat of what we just did. January we'll adopt what we just did. We'll do the annual call for amendments. Performance measures will be adopted in February meeting, and the comment periods and the processing will happen in February.
All right. Any other member comments or discussion items? Hearing none, it's 2:18 and the meeting is adjourned. That's a little